We are live. Good afternoon. It's almost afternoon for most
Hello.
people. For those tuning in, Stephanie and I have not been on one of these in a long time.
A very long time.
It's been some months. And
Yeah.
actually, we are I was going to say this at the end, but we are relaunching our LinkedIn Live, rebranding, if you will. Industry chat started a few months ago from my personal LinkedIn, and we had so much interest and excitement. We are bringing it over to our company page and having all kinds of guests coming up from hospitality professors, consultants, hoteliers, vendors. It's going to be fun.
It'll be awesome. Our partners are really excited about it.
I'm excited. So every
Yeah.
Wednesday at noon Central, we will be airing. So we're formalizing our times a little bit. How are you though? How's life?
Good. Very busy. I've been kind of behind the scenes, just working away. We had, a lot of partners that joined us so far this year, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
Lots of onboardings for me. And personal news, we close on our new house on Friday
That's
and
awesome.
then have to start a month of renovations. So I'll be living here, working there, overseeing construction, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's fine. So,
In the midst of quite literally the busiest we've ever been as a
yeah,
company.
it's awesome. It's
I
great.
mean, we have a document of all of the big opportunities we're evaluating and everything from hotels, vendors beyond the industry.
Yep.
You're buying and selling houses. So
Yep. It's fine. We'll survive.
you'll
It's
be
just a
good.
period of time. It's fine.
It'll be good. It'll be
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so today's a little different because we're not doing anything about tech for once. We are talking about imposter syndrome. We're also going to turn the tables a little and you're going to ask some questions today.
Yes. So it came up because you and I have both been feeling, not all the time, but like symptoms. And I mean, I say symptoms like it's a medical issue, but it actually is a cognitive thing. And
Yeah,
so we were talking about it and we're like, we're sure we're not the only people, right? Like, it's not just us. No, no, no.
right.
There's lots of people. So we're like, let's just get online and see, if anybody would find this
Well,
interesting. So here we are.
yeah.
Um, so I actually was looking it up and it feels like the term imposter syndrome is new. Like it's one of the trendy things, right? It's one of the things that we say or we see on Instagram. It actually started in the 70s and it was coined in a book that was written about, surprise, high achieving women.
Oh, really?
Shocking.
No
Yes.
way.
No way.
Okay,
Yes.
really
So
interesting.
it's actually, it's not obviously only applicable to women. It's also not only applicable to those that are high achievers or perfectionists
Right.
or me control
Interesting.
freaks. It's, very widespread and very broad. And I think
Right.
that it's pretty interesting. And I wanted to kind of chat through a couple of different things that we've noticed within ourselves, but as well, ways to cope, ways to get rid of those thoughts. I mean, they're just thoughts. It's a self-doubt issue. And I think, so often many of us, I speak for myself, feel inferior in different ways because we're surrounded by all of these super intelligent people. So
Yeah.
it makes it a little bit hard to navigate sometimes, but we are all very intelligent. We are all really amazing people. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that when you're stacked next to somebody else that you admire or, that you feel like is greater than you.
It's funny when you said that, I thought of our former CEO, Don. I'm almost positive. I'm going to give him credit for this because I'm pretty sure it was him. But used to say everyone is actually an expert at something. Everyone is actually super talented
I
at
love that.
something. So I mean, one person might have expertise somewhere that I absolutely don't. The tables can turn in the same thing. And so I think we live in a world of comparison. Like, let's be
We
honest.
do.
Social
Yeah.
media has, I have been pretty transparent even at the end of last year. I got off of LinkedIn for 3 solid weeks because as a founder, you start to see every other founder's successes and you're like, that becomes the yardstick by which you measure your business succeeding. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is their highlight reel too, but we do, unfortunately, like, I don't think people knew nearly as much as we know now about other people's lives because of
Oh,
social
so
media,
true.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and we're showing our very best selves.
Yeah.
So whenever you look at something on social media, like I have been very active in workouts this year, right?
Yeah.
So I follow a lot of people on social media to get tips and tricks or new ideas because I'm tired of the same old thing. And I look at them and I'm like, I don't look like them. But it doesn't, I mean, it's just because we put our best version out there. So, from a business perspective, whenever we see someone that looks like they're more successful or looks like they're X and we are Y, that's where the self-doubt comes from and the comparisons. And I
Yeah.
think it's a little unfair for ourselves to, for one, feel that way, but to do that
Yeah.
because they also, every person on the planet has their own things that they're not as great at. And I think, we are not one to one. We're not made to be created equal. That is just not how it is, because otherwise we're all the same person. And what are we bringing to the world, right? We're supposed to be giving something unique about each of us. And if we try to compare, it's not really going to work out.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think honestly too, I'm thinking of my own experience living a life of comparison. We actually almost miss out on wisdom from other people because comparison makes us want to pull back. And where my example on this is last fall, I was introduced to right? We met a gentleman through LinkedIn, right? Crazy, the power of LinkedIn. Like he found us, we met with him, he connects us with another founder. She's very, very powerful female founder in our space, incredible. And we sat for an hour at a coffee shop, and I still think about all the advice she gave. And I'm like, had I let the feeling of like, oh, I don't want to reveal my vulnerability, that I actually need some guidance in these areas, I think that's what imposter syndrome can do. It makes us want to pretend like we're fine when really we're like, I don't know what to do in this area. But if we're just more vulnerable and we can open up about that, does that make sense? We can
Yeah,
start
totally.
and that conversation has gotten, I mean, multiple things from that conversation with her, that hour spent, has helped us. I mean, it's in so many ways. And I'm like, gosh, had I not been open and vulnerable, we wouldn't have gotten that. So I think part of it is just saying, like, maybe I feel this way because I need some help in a couple areas, and not, we have to be the best and the expert at everything.
Yeah.
And then we never learn from it as a result.
And I think it's okay to be open and vulnerable about things we don't know. I think
Yeah.
it doesn't make us lesser than, and it will give us that helpful advice and the tools that we need to really be able to become the expert in that field or to gain that knowledge that we need, rather than walking around with this big hole in our head of not knowing that information. So I think that it's actually quite helpful to lower our boundaries and our reserves a little bit, and maybe not strive for the same level of, I have to know and I have to be the expert and I have to portray myself as that, because no one can be the expert in all things. It's just not humanly possible in that way. So I think the level of perfectionism that we try to strive for, or, to be seen as, is
Right.
what also can cause this doubt in our head because we feel like we're failing.
Oh, that's powerful. It is powerful. And I think something that you're really good at is, aside from tech and all of that, is like leading, mentoring, coaching leaders and future leaders. So like you also have a passion for people coming into the workplace and helping them. I think this is a really important lesson to bring in, no matter where you are. Like when we started this company, I've never felt more imposter. Even
Right.
though we've been in the industry, we were both executives in our last company. We helped sell the company. I mean, it's not like we got, nothing wrong with this, but not like we came out of college and started this startup. I mean, we had the years to back it. And even so, still to this day, sometimes it's like, oh, like, are we sure? Like, should we really do this? Are we being taken seriously? And I think that's just common.
It definitely is. And it's so funny that you just said how good I am at product and tech. I remember when I was with Amadeus and I was on the GMS product team, I had no clue what a sprint was. I didn't know how to use Jira. I felt so out of my element for a little while of like, should I be sitting in this seat? Like, did I just fall here? Because, I didn't know everything that the person that I took their place knew. How could I? How could I learn if I already knew everything? So I think that it's so funny, our perceptions of each other too, and where, you and I do really well of building each other up. And I think that that's what we also need to do in this industry, is say, like, it's okay if you need to ask for help. Call me. Lean
Yeah.
on me. Everybody is here to support each other. And I think that that's a big piece of it, is just letting your guard down a little bit and letting others fill your cup.
Yeah. Sorry. I think it might be for some reason, my connection's not loving me right now. Am I freezing on you?
Uh-oh. No, you're
Real
okay.
world.
You're okay.
Real world.
Yeah,
Okay.
right?
Country, living in the country. Will do that to your Wi-Fi. Yes. No, I think you're right. And I'm even thinking this is a bit different, and this is not even on the list of what we were going to talk about, but so Stephanie and I are part of a group of women that get together in our industry once a month, and we pray for each other. And one of the things we'll talk about in next week's session is the value of community. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's community of, hey, I'm feeling this way. Let's talk through it. Have you felt this way? I mean, actually, I leaned on last Friday. I called one of those women in that group. She's a founder, Susan Springsteen, wonderful, wonderful woman. She's the founder of H2O Connected. And Susan helped me understand a few things about financials that I'm like, I've never felt like more of an imposter, because, when you're in a startup, you take a title, but that doesn't mean anything. I've never been a CEO or a founder
You're everything.
before. And I'm learning a lot about the financials and margins and things that I've never really, yes, I went to business school. I also didn't pay a lot of attention in college. But she was so kind. And I told Stephanie, that was like the best 45 minutes spent to sit on the phone with her and talk through some questions for a deal we're working on. And had I not just been upfront of like, I don't know what I don't know, help me,
Right.
that community came in for me. So I think it's not even about, it's like, yes, we're all going to have that imposter syndrome feeling, but how do we push through it, and what resources can we leverage to help us so then we can help people when they're feeling that way later?
Absolutely. I think community is definitely one of them. I'm part of a faith-driven entrepreneur group here in my little side of town, my little side of Dallas. And one thing that we were talking about last week on this topic exactly is, we look at the immeasurable road that we have to go down. I have all of these things to do to be successful, to grow, to get where I want to go, to hit my goal. But we sometimes forget the road that we already traveled on and all of the successes that we had along that way, right? Like, we try to remind ourselves of how far Affixify has come in such a short time of being on the market. And I think it's something that we can do in all of our areas, whether it be with work, with personal, business, learning, education, whatever, of being able to see like these steps that we have taken. So like, I'll call out my husband. My husband is trying to teach himself Power BI. My brain is like, what? Like Power BI?
He's great at that stuff though.
He is an Excel master. I mean, he helps me with all of my formulas and the things that I need. So Power BI is definitely up his alley. And last night, he doesn't know I'm saying this either, by the way, but last night he was getting frustrated with learning Power BI with only being self-taught, right? Without any kind of educational resources. And I had to remind him of how far he has come in learning even Excel, in getting to the point where his brain can manipulate the data in the way that he wants to. And I think it's something that we need to do when we're getting this creep of doubt of like, take a minute. Where have I been? How far have I already come to get acclimated into this field or whatever the topic is that I'm trying to get adjusted to, before we live in the frustration of feeling that imposter syndrome? Because it's just frustration. It's just our own brains that are causing this upon ourselves.
You're so right. And I think it's a really dangerous thing to sit in, because it can keep us from what's important, taking the next step. You talk about imposter syndrome. Walking onto stage at Entrepreneur 20X last June, we had phenomenal coaching. I mean, literally, to work with Gain advisors in that process, you can't really ask for better. And even still, you saw me those 2 nights before the competition. I was like, I almost couldn't have words, because I'm like, I just don't feel like I belong here. And yet the reception, no, we didn't win. And that's fine. There were so many good tech companies, but the reception to that and the fruits we're still seeing from even being part of that have been so great. If I had backed out of it, which I wasn't going to, but because of that imposter feeling, look at what we would have missed out on.
Absolutely. So. And you practiced so much. It wasn't a lack of preparation or a lack of practice that caused that. It was own feelings, of feeling out of place or because it's the first time. And I think that that makes it really hard. If you had done that, which now you have many, many, many times, the last time that you went on stage and you did a pitch competition, you're like, of course
Yeah.
you practiced, but
Yeah.
your confidence was greater than what you had last year because you had more of them under your belt and that syndrome left your head.
Yes, you're spot on. It's a tricky thing. And I don't know, whether it's a founder, a female founder, a male consultant. I mean, whoever's watching this, whether now or on our YouTube that we're about to launch, by the way, it is applicable because it's human nature. And I think it's interesting, even like my mom is so talented in what she does, and she speaks and writes. She's also a teacher. You put her in front of a classroom of students and she's going to be like so at ease because that's what she's done forever. But she still has questions about this other thing she does. Like, and I'm like, at your age and your experience, if you're feeling it, and she's a published author, how then much more are those of us, feeling
What
it?
about the rest of us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to my point of we don't all have the same skill set and we can't expect that of ourselves. No one else is expecting it of us. So
Yeah.
why are we putting that pressure on ourselves?
One of the biggest times I've gotten past it, but that I felt that, I think you know this about me, was when we not launched formally to market, but when we started developing. Like, we had talked forever. We had the idea, I mean, all of it. But when we started talking to our developers on calls every week, getting through this process, I was like, this is so terrifying, because you're like, I have never felt like more. And I remember telling my husband, like, who am I to start a tech company? I've always sold technology, but I don't code it. And he's like, that's just because this is what God's called you to do. But it just is funny how we can feel that way. And I don't know, in the tech space, that's a big one
especially
too. Women in tech.
Yeah.
Like,
but look at yourself now. I mean, you have conversations with the developers all the time about droplets and Postgres, and you're editing the website. I mean, all of these things now that, we did not know in the very, very beginning. And it's just become something that you learn.
It is. And it's good. And I think takeaway for me, at least, would be press through it and have community around you to get you through it. Because we kind of laugh about the term, but it is a really real thing that can hold you back.
Absolutely.
Or, have you give
It's
up.
paralyzing. It
Yes.
gets in your way. And I think, my takeaway would be focus on the positive of the direction you've already come and how many steps you've already taken to get wherever you're going, and lean into resources, whether it's community or educational material, YouTube, obviously. Like, there's a million things out there that you can use as ways to kind of feel a little bit more at ease. I set up reporting in Salesforce the other day. Never done that in my life, but you know what helped me? Google. So, it's just one of those things where there are ways to overcome it and to get out of your own head. And I think if you focus on the more tactical steps and the ways that you can actually get to your goal and what you're trying to do, it removes the emotional side of it.
That's so true. It's so true. And I think we need more conversations like this. So that's why we decided to do this. It's not tech focused, but this is everyone focused. Zoe over at Gain Advisors and I had a talk like this back in, I think, November, about mental health in the workplace, and even the impact that the pandemic had on our mental health. And similar thing, right? Like, sometimes we have to take a pause from the tech grind, if you will, and look at the personal side of it. So it's so important.
Yeah, definitely. It's my favorite.
I know you had this idea and it's so good. And I think we need to do maybe once a month, kind of veer away from tech and talk a little bit more broad about these types of things. So thank you for the idea.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
See how you help others in your journey, because I know you're doing more and more mentoring. So
yeah, I love it. It's just, I love seeing things click for people and, watching people grow and where they were versus where they go, and watching people do amazing things. It warms my heart.
I know. I love that. Well, thank you for those who have joined, those who are watching this later. We are, as I mentioned, about to launch our YouTube channel. It will be a source of knowledge and education, completely unbiased, because that is our premise as a company. So you'll hear from people, us, you'll hear from hotels, we want to put tech forward companies out there. If you're watching this and you're interested in being a guest on our industry chats and on our YouTube, reach out to me and we'll send you the interest form. But Stephanie, I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad to have you as my business partner and friend. And we'll catch you guys in a week. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.